Paranormal Karen, she's so spooky. Paranormal Karen, funny too. Paranormal Karen, she's so spooky. Oh, and did I mention she's funny too? Yeah, cha-cha-cha.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to Paranormal Karen. I am beyond excited for today's podcast. Let me put it to you this way. You all know that I am dyslexic and I don't read much. The book we're talking about today, I own on audio, I own it on ebook, and I own the actual hard copy manual. If you are a reader, a healer, anything, you all have to get this book. It is called The Subtle Body, an encyclopedia of your energetic anatomy by Cyndi Dale. Cyndi, thank you so much for coming on. How are you today?
I am absolutely fantastic. As we were chatting very briefly before we started, we're going to be paranormal. We're going to have fun, and then we're going to see what, two cooks working that way come up with, because it might be quite interesting as long as it's not lime jello or something, kind of like, right? Just too bland. We won't go bland.
Exactly. No tapioca. When I was a kid, my sister told me tapioca was fish eyes and glue, and I have not been able to eat it since.
Oh, that's horrible. Well, I'm all Norwegian, so I grew up with pretty much only white food because that's what Norwegians eat. So
Wow.
I promise not to pull too far or deeply from my Norwegian roots, or we'll be on it in a few minutes.
That's amazing. Is that, we're going to get to that. I actually wrote that down because that is interesting thing. So first of all, I'm just going to say this again, everybody, this book, this book is so thorough. I just imagine you never woke up in the middle of the night and said, I forgot to put this in. It's got everything. Tell me, your beginning. You've seen auras since you were a kid, right?
I have. I used to talk to ghosts or spirits. I saw auras, chakras, got a sense of what was happening with people. I still remember one of the, highlights of my 4 to 5 year old self's life. We lived in Huntsville, Alabama. My dad worked for NASA, and we lived right in front of or behind, whichever way you want to call it, a railroad. And we would see hobos for real, not just dead hobos, but real hobos.
Always better.
Very frequently. So one night I hear 2 hobos coming in the house through the screen door going into the kitchen. And I wake up, I hear them talking, they're chatting, they make breakfast. I heard the bacon frying. I heard it frying. When you're a kid, I love bacon. I know what bacon frying sounds like. So they talked, they left. I heard the door, shut. I did not hear the dishes being done. So I ran into my parents' room and I was like, the hobos were here. The hobos were here. They made breakfast. My mom rolled over and was sort of like, will you just stop making stuff up? My dad, a little more patient, but just sort of humoring me, took me by the hand. We went into the kitchen. He said, now look around. Do you see any dishes? And I said, no, there's no dishes. I was so upset. I don't know if I was more upset because there was no evidence of the hobos or, because my parents didn't believe me. So, a lot of us are strange kids.
I know. Yes, but actually it's so funny what goes through your mind, like who's going to do the dishes? Like that was like, there's scary people in my house. Who's going to do the dishes? Do you think those were spirits that just came in and were acting out?
Absolutely. I'm positive they had been hobos. They were probably still on the line, whatever that means. It goes through Huntsville, Alabama, and they were still wandering around, continuing on, kind of with their travels or travails. And they just came right into the house, did what they wanted to do and left. And so, if you really think of it, I know we have more than 7 billion living people and then a lot of other living beings on this planet. There's a lot of dead people.
Yes.
More than there are living people, because then we've got other groups. We've got, fairies, angels,
Elementals.
kind of natural beings. I mean, think about how crowded it is here.
I'm so glad you said that, because I always think about England. I don't know if England is older than us, or it's just that we think that because we've only been here over 200 years, but there were people before us here. So that means even more. Maybe it is getting time to actually have that be a job of crossing people over.
It would be so smart to be able to do that. I have a couple interesting stories from England. One is my oldest son. His name is Michael. My dad died when Michael was 8. He was really the only grandchild. And it was 6 months of, just pain and, Michael being taken to the hospital all the time. It was interesting because when my dad was actually dying and I was in the room, Michael was playing the game of life with a friend of mine. So he's a pretty tuned in kid. And so I took him to England on a budget as sort of let's take a week and get away. And, he's sort of a funny kid. All he would eat was chicken McNuggets at McDonald's the entire week. But the B&B that we stayed in, every morning, Michael would wake up and he would go, Mom, these people keep having tea parties in our room. He heard the spirits, he heard the ghosts. And now I have no problem if people want to stay and hold tea parties, for infinity. But, it would be nice for a lot of, these spirits to be able to move on, to decide if they want to come back or just go on a new assignment. So it should be a job, is giving them some choices, especially if they're in agony or guilt, or, they believe that they're supposed to be a haunting to help out the family. It's not that helpful for the family.
No, it isn't. And you know what else? Have you felt like, I don't know if it's just me, but I felt like there is a huge uptake in sort of the haunting appearances or things showing up, or it's way more. It sounds like you were always tuned in, but I feel like the rest of us, who I'm pretty tuned in, I do my tarot readings and stuff like that, but I feel like all of a sudden it's more intense than it ever was. Do you feel that?
Oh, Karen, I'm glad you're bringing that up. And it's interesting, kind of to talk about that. I certainly think there's more breakthroughs and bleed throughs. And I think we're in a very critical time. I mean, the Greeks, the Hebrews, the Hindus all say that we've had at least 4, if not 5, different eras on this planet, and we just ruin ourselves and the planet each time. So we're coming up to another one of those junctures. And I think we're getting a lot of help is what I think's happening. And so people are forcing themselves to wake up because the planet is at stake. In fact, I do sessions with a couple young people. They're in their 20s, and I knew them in Little League. Now, I wasn't in Little League. My son was in Little League. So I've known these kids since they've been like 5, 6, 7. And the daughter has recently been telling me, I'm seeing things. Like I drove by a grave with my girlfriend and I saw a spirit there. So I think a lot of, especially young people, like came in already attuned and now they're being tapped because maybe some of our remedies have to come from other souls that can perceive with more, kind of clarity than we can in our day-to-day lives.
I always, what is it? We're I don't know if you're my age. I won't ask. I'm 56, but we're the crystal generation. Then it was it was indigo, crystal, then starseed. And I think the starseeds are the ones that are coming in already, like kind of just so aware. But I always laugh because, no, am I an indigo or a crystal? Do you know what I'm talking about?
You'd be an indigo. I'm an indigo. We're indigos.
And
then crystals.
And we were supposed to be the anarchists that walked in and said, you're not doing that right, which I love that job. I'll take that job any day. And then they're coming in. I just think it must be so helpful that like when that girl comes up to you and says that, I know so many people don't have the option of going to someone and talking to them and saying, I just saw a spirit in the graveyard. Did that change everything for her, or was it just an exciting moment?
Well, she just thinks it's weird.
Oh, oh, to be young again.
But it's sort of when you wake up at first, it's a little creepy and it's a little scary, or it can be. I mean, I know I had different types of awakenings, and the clairaudience, which I shut down when I was a teenager, and then it opened up. It opened up with knocks and my name being called and voices speaking. And, but I think it is important to have a place to go or a resource. A mom brought her son in maybe a year or two ago, wouldn't tell me anything he wanted to talk about. I sit across from them. He's 12. He looks like a science geek, right? Like a super cool nerd, big black glasses, skinny, and he won't tell me what he wants to talk about. So I tune in and I see a blue-skinned girl flying around him. And I say, well, who's your blue-skinned friend? He looks at his mom and he goes, did you tell her? What did you tell her? She goes, I haven't told her anything. And I said, well, you've got a blue-skinned friend. And he has a blue-skinned friend. He said she comes from another planet. She's teaching him things. He said he gets dreams where she's in the dream and a lot of other beings and kids are in the dream. And there's always this white flame in the center of the circle. And they're all passing around this white flame. And I said, you're all helping to help us create like a new planet, to take care of the planet, to get our powers back. And he goes, yeah, but what am I? Like, who am I? And the only thing that popped in my head, Karen, to say to him is, you're an X-Men.
I was thinking Avatar. I was thinking the movie Avatar came out. You know what I mean? Remember how blue they were?
Yeah, they're blue.
Okay, so that's amazing. And I want to go back to the clairaudient too in a second. This is fantastic. And I know, I know so many people are going to want to book readings now because this is the place where, like, so I'm a tarot reader and a psychic and I'm working on my mediumship right now. But the thing that's so interesting is there's a little fear thing with me that comes in that I'm just getting over. But the clairaudient happens to me in the morning and they wake me up, or right when I'm falling asleep. Because you get in that beta stage. And sometimes right before I fall asleep, I hear it and I'll just jump up and go, no. Do you have the clairaudient now? And how does somebody get used to it? We just have to trust it?
It is different, isn't it? Because when it reawakened, maybe I was in my early 20s, mid 20s. It'd been shut for maybe about 10 years. It was weird. It was spooky. I have to say, I think I'm pretty used to it now. I just don't go tell I don't go to the mall and mutter to myself, right?
I do. That's how I am.
But it makes sense. It makes sense that it comes like dusk and dawn and these pause moments because our resistance is down. And it's strange because I've really gotten used to it, I think. Like when I'm teaching a class, now my students know that Cyndi will sometimes just cock her head and get quiet and then just say, well, this is what they're saying. Because it's a lot of times is how I really learn something, to be honest. I actually tell people, Karen, I'm not a medium because I don't like, how do I say this? I don't want to be known as a medium. Mm-hmm. I don't want to just spend my day talking to dead people. A lot of times it's really, really traumatic. As I'm sure you're aware, you feel the feelings of the deceased. I have this ability that I can often feel exactly what they went through when they're dying. Oh. So I believe that's a service for them, but it's challenging. It's not, it can be hard on the body.
It is a much heavier energy than doing psychic stuff. Very, very much a different feeling. And yes, and it's people are crying all day if you're doing that all day. So I know what you're talking about.
But it's so useful. Years and years ago, I had a client come to see me. Her husband had just died. I'd worked with her maybe once or twice before. And I was not going to talk to her dead husband. I was telling myself, nope, Cyndi, you're not talking to a dead husband. Well, her dead husband comes in and he goes, tell my wife that our daughter is going to be a judge and she's going to marry my best friend within a year. He died like a month before. I'm like, isn't this a little premature? And he goes, no, just tell her. So she called me 2 years later. She said, guess who I'm married to? I'm married to, her husband was a lawyer. I'm married to my husband's best friend, and my daughter's going to law school.
Wow.
So sometimes it's not heavy, it's positive. It can be really helpful. One time it was a little stressful for me. I had a woman, and it's not on my website, I do mediumship. She had seen me for healing. She came in with her father, her mother, his wife had just died. She goes, "Do you get any messages from my mom?" My dad's wife. Again, I'm sitting there going, keep the door shut, Cyndi, don't go there. The mom talks and she says, "Tell my daughter, I'm so sorry that I used to hit her."
Oh.
Yeah. So I say it, and the dad starts yelling at me. Like, "How dare you make that up? How dare you say that about my wife?" And the daughter looks at him and says, "Dad, she used to do that." He kept yelling at me, and I sent him out. I said, "Look, I am the messenger. You deal with your daughter." And I thought, what a setup that was.
Wow. Wow.
I know. But, we're in the business. You do readings, psychic, mediumship. And I think for any of us, even in our day-to-day life, when we get a bleed through, a voice talks, we get a dream and a visitation, most of the time, I don't know if we're really looking for it, right? Mm-hmm. It's there. Somebody needs to speak. Somebody needs to talk. There's a message for us, or that we're supposed to give to somebody else.
Yes. And it's so funny because the story that you told about the wife marrying the best friend, that is so helpful, because that would just be something that you'd have guilt about, or you would be like, "Oh, I can't go out with my husband's best." You know what I mean? So that is such a great story. I love that. Sometimes what happens to me during readings, and this is a really good question for you, because the topic of channeling, because I was brought up in the paranormal field by people that taught me caution. I was very lucky. I met with people that, because sometimes ghost hunters just go in and then there's trouble. So I was always brought up in that field with caution. And we always thought channeling was someone else coming into your body, letting someone else use your body. And it was always like a big no. That's not a good idea. But sometimes when I'm reading, I just start talking, and, some readers are quiet and then they give the message. I just keep talking, and then there's a certain point where I just go, who's saying this? What is going on? You know what I mean?
Yes. Yeah. There are so many different types of channeling. I'd love to speak to that. So, clairaudience is typically the gift associated with the fifth chakra, that's in the throat.
Ooh, you know what? I'm going to stop you for 1 second, just because my battery is about to run out and we're at a break. But hold that thought, because it's that was brilliant. Okay, hold on.
It's help.
Okay, we'll be right back. Hey, everybody, just want to let you know my tarot class is on sale this weekend only until the 23rd, or the 23rd. I believe it runs out at midnight. So that'll be 2 days. You can get half off when you go to karenrontowski.com and click on tarot, and then you're going to use the coupon code October, all capital letters October. Also, November 1st, I finally have a Patreon. I know I'm so far behind everyone else. It is a tarot and psychic development. So it's going to be some paranormal, but mostly tarot and psychic development. I'm going to be putting up classes myself that are tarot classes, and we're going to be doing meditations and psychic exercises, and there's going to be homework and all kinds of fun stuff. I'm also going to have guests come on and tell us about their process, how they do their thing. So November 1st, the first class will be out. November 4th, patreon.com/Rontowski. So folks, I have to tell you, I'm laughing because when Cyndi was talking, I look and the battery was flashing, and I was like, she just zapped my battery. So you and me together, I think that energy. So you do have problems with like watches and stuff like that, don't you?
I totally have problems with all that. So I don't even wear a watch. I don't wear a watch, so I have once, when I worn a watch, watched the minute hand go backward when I was upset about something.
Oh,
yeah.
And
Yeah.
that was, now, even before we get to where we left off, that was something I was going to ask you. That's very, well, I'm going to put that for later, get upset or anger. That's a later thing. So you, go ahead. We were talking about channeling and you started.
Yeah, we were talking about channeling, which is typically seen as a gift associated with the fifth chakra. It's in the throat. We receive messages through the backside, share them through the front side, but it's really more complicated than that because even hearing is more complicated. We receive at least 80% of what turns into words in our head through our skin and through our bones, just as vibrations. And then the brain has to figure out what's going on. So channeling is that complicated as well. So I consider there to be 4 types of channeling. One is writing, right? Where you write as if something's in you, or you hear something, or you feel like somebody's there with you. The classical clairaudience, there's 3 types. So typically we think of, like you were saying, that classical channeling is a being comes in you and your soul leaves. So you're out there hanging out and something's doing things with you. I don't do that style either. I think it's very uncomfortable. It's bad for the body. Yeah. If somebody's in you, they're changing your physiology, by the way. So a lot of people who do that type of channeling end up with weight issues. Their poor thyroid.
Right? Oh, how interesting!
Right?
Yes.
Yeah.
And sometimes it happens on a ghost hunt. And if you're not, I always say, if you're not kind of in control of your aura, something can step right in on when you're paranormal investigating. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, where you aren't, something else can be. So you can also share your body. This is called, I call it partial channeling or classical channeling, where there's another soul in there with you and you're there. And it's great if you get along, but not so good if you don't. Right?
No.
Yeah, that's kind of like multiple personality disorder or whatever they call it these days.
Yeah.
Most of us do this kind of channeling. I call it translational. We're in the body and something's outside of us. Right. And we can hear it or it relates to us, so that's probably the safest. But we can also do channeling like clair empathy, where we bring messages in, say, through our other chakras that might be more physical or emotional or mental or telepathic. And then we open our mouths and whatever it is that's supposed to come out just comes out. So a lot of people don't know they're channeling because that's what they're doing. They just have this feeling. And then they open their mouth and they're like, wow, I'm quite brilliant right now.
I need a t-shirt that says that on it. This would be actors also, right?
Exactly. Yeah. And when I'm teaching, that's what I'm doing. I know I'm getting data from elsewhere, maybe even, spiritually or other realms. And it's really just sort of getting organized inside. And my brain is somehow packaging it into words and putting it out there. And the 4th channeling is languages. So, there is actually a medical term for people who suddenly start speaking in a foreign language they never learned.
That would scare me.
Well, I'm not even good at the ones I have learned. So
exactly.
But some people, maybe you've heard them, Karen, they speak light languages. They speak languages from different planets. And that's sort of that same type of clairaudience. And it's quite beautiful. If you've ever heard somebody speaking from, an Andromeda or a Pleiadian perspective, it can be really healing, actually.
I know there's a couple of channelers that do that. The alien, the Palladian or the Orions.
Yep.
I was thinking, like, if people speak Latin, Latin makes me nervous because I know that's the favorite. That's a strange, you know what I mean? Like a English language. But actually I'm trying to get somebody that does the light language on. His name is Ty and he's a healer and it is pretty amazing. I guess, you know what, it's funny. I always jump to the be careful when actually there's so many great things that could happen.
Right. But the be careful, I think, is really about do not let something in your body that's called a boundary issue. The first time somebody was teaching me clairaudience, I was naturally clairaudient. I didn't know what was up. They never taught boundaries. They were like, open up and just see who comes in. Oh. So I feel this bizarre tingling in my neck. Oh, it was horrible. It was sort of like Star Trek, somebody being beamed into my body. It was so bad. And I was like, who are you? And this voice said, I'm Tom the sailor. And I'm like, Tom the sailor, get your own body. I'm like, I don't want to know Tom the sailor. So you got to keep your wits about you.
You know, that is interesting. Two quick stories, because I don't want to talk too much because I want to hear everything you have to say. But when we go investigating, we investigate usually where there's a problem. So we're walking in.
I looked at your list. It's fascinating what you do. It's super cool.
Some of it is fun, but it's whenever you feel that scratch on the back of your neck, that's exactly like I think where you were saying, that's like where they try to get in. That's the entry point. So when I had one very dangerous case that was really dark, there was something trying to get into everyone. It was affecting everyone. It was really, and I remember I've said this a million times on my podcast, but I tell this to people when it tries to take over. I remembered my teacher saying the demons will try to take your mind. And so I sat there and I said, my name is Karen Rontowski and I know who I am. My name is Karen Rontowski. And I was the only one that didn't get affected. And so that is sort of that boundary too, isn't it? Of knowing who you are.
Absolutely. That is an awesome method for dealing with that, because there are true creepy crawlies. Very early in my career, I was doing some healing work on a young mom who had 4-stage cancer. She came to see me. I had another gentleman helping me to, kind of work with her, and her husband came, and I was literally taken over by some kind of black thing that was in her. I went and threw up. I was so sick because I didn't really know as much about boundaries then as I do now. And thank goodness I had my friend there helping. And we cast it out, because good really is more powerful than bad. Yeah. I mean, you just have to know that. Mm-hmm. And it was new. I was newer at this. It was a long time ago. The cancer went away, by the way.
Uh-huh.
So you think about it, malignant spirits, malignancies in the body. I'm not saying every pit of cancer can be healed, you know what I mean? Or it's all about dark entities. But I think a lot of issues are about darkness.
Yes. And that's an interesting thing as for you throwing up, because a lot of people that work with exorcism or this, that really get focused on this and don't know when to step away, they go after the digestion. That's why they will die of some sort of disease or kidney failure or something in that area. And I know I have to jump up and go to the bathroom when something like that happens, because it's immediate. It's like that part of the body. But that's fascinating. It's also such it's almost like you kind of have to know what is. I have someone that really wants to get on this podcast, and he has something terrible in his house, but he's also putting out books and going on podcasts. And I'm like, you're feeding it. And I can't have you on, because the first thing it's going to do is show up in my house. You're not trying to get rid of it. You're feeding it with the attention. I don't know how I got on this. Back to positive stuff.
Yeah, but you can't let that, you don't want to connect with that stuff. It's,
right.
And we do have the power to say no, but you also have the power to say, hey, look, just deal with it first.
Yeah. 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 And there's a part of it that, we are fascinated with the paranormal and the other side. And sometimes you can get obsessed with that fascination. And you have to know, especially with our cases, when we go in with the dark stuff, you kind of have to know what's going on, or you need to get to know that person a little bit to go, wait a minute, what are we looking at here? But that interesting about cancer, and I know you're like, I'm with you on that. It's not all cases, but I had a friend that she had to overcome breast cancer. She got a tumor on the front of her chest she was a tiny, tiny woman. It actually became bigger than her. And I sort of thought it was a hungry ghost. And we tried to remove it, but there was something about, we couldn't remove it. Like we couldn't get it out. Have you ever encountered something like that?
Oh, yeah, that's an interesting situation. And Hungry Ghost, there's actually like a whole kind of Buddhistic Hindu philosophy that there's these levels of hell. We have to deal with the different challenges on them and work them through. I had an interesting healing about 2 years ago. Gentleman, a therapist, I couldn't get him into my office, very, reduced hours in person, but really good guy. So I said, just come to my home office. That's fine. He comes in, he has 3rd or 4th stage trachea cancer. And I'm looking at it and I'm like, this is about racism. I said, what's racist in your life? He's a really nice guy. I knew he wasn't racist. And he said, I was raised in the South. My family is in the KKK. Everybody from there is in the KKK. I'm the only one who left and got out of it. And I said, well, you have a dark force attached to that area in your body. And I said, what did you start to do against racism? I said, did it coincide with you, finding the cancer? It goes, yeah, I started to write a book about my upbringing and racism. I said, well, that dark force, which is different than an entity. An entity is like a soul. A force hasn't necessarily had a life, but it propagates sexism, racism, genocide, the stuff we're really seeing on our planet, right? Mm-hmm. So it wasn't hard to get rid of it. I'm like, well, you're done with it. We're done with it. Goodbye. You just kind of open up to, power of goodness. I use the word grace, but not religiously. I use it as love in motion, right? Love that's empowered to deal with things. Mm. He felt better. I'm in my home office in the basement. I have to go upstairs into the kitchen, and the two dogs always wait for when I come up because they get snackies. Okay, right? So I shouldn't even be saying that word because they're near me. So I'm going upstairs and they start losing it. Like they're pawing at the floor. They're screaming, they're yelping. They sound like werewolves. They are not like, can I just have a snack? Like they always are. So my client's right behind me. He's rounding the stair, and behind him, a bookcase falls. That bookcase has been there for 20 years. It never budges. And I'm like, and then as soon as it falls, I just said, you've got to go, like out loud to the force. I could feel it leaving. It was gone, and the dogs were calm as can be, waited for their snacks. I gave them bones because I was a little freaked out, but it was sort of like, these things are real and they're physical, and yet it couldn't hurt him and it couldn't hurt me. It protested, but it couldn't do anything when it was surrounded, if you were, kind of by the energies of grace.
Wow. And this is a strange question, but you are, so you're obviously, I see you as this higher vibration connected to, really connected to angels or whatever we want to call it. Grace. We can call it grace. Is it that easier for you, or is it because you have less fear and so much faith that happens easier for you?
Oh, that's a really good question. I've had a ton of fear. When I was a kid, I saw demons. I could see them going in and out of my mom. My mom, was very, very gifted, very intelligent, and also mentally ill. And when I was 3 or 4, she did this bizarre thing because I could hear, spirits. I saw angels. She had me swear on a Bible to Christ, but it was not Christ in that room. Oh. So I've had, my whole, kind of thing with fear. And does that make me a bad person? Am I evil? Or the evil people, the one that the demons attack? Part of why I had arrhythmia years and years ago was there actually was a family entity. It was fairly, harmless actually, but attached around my heart that I'd gotten in from my mom. I went to this cool guy to get it, off. His name is Hanakia. He's so powerful. He looked at me. He was raised by a Christian, pastor. And I'd had a dream the night before about what needed to happen to get rid of that entity. It was a very Christian dream. It had Bible verses in it. I didn't tell him any of it. He looked at me, he goes, blah, blah, blah. He swears. He goes and gets his Bible and he goes, I got to use Bible verses. He picked the exact Bible verses I'd had in the dream.
Wow. So
and the thing left.
Do you interpret that as you really actually knew, you just didn't trust it?
Yes, exactly. So at this point, I don't see much to be scared of because I've done all that. I mean, it's sort of like age. After a while, you go, whatever. I've been here. Okay, the tire blew. I've had this happen before. AAA's busy. What am I going to do? I mean, it's just, real life. It's just sort of like, well, I'll figure it out. I'll call somebody, or I'll just sit here, and wait till I get an answer. I just think it loses its potency after a while.
Well, you know what, too? I always feel like, especially childhood traumas or like that, they are usually the setup for what you're supposed to be. So you would probably saw that then to know that you were supposed to be this type of healer now. I have a friend who, she's a witch and she does all kinds of removal of stuff for people. And I always wonder, because they say if you do that, sometimes you work with certain angels, you have a demon bound to you. She is not like you. She works in a much different way, but I always wondered if that had to happen, or just everybody's different, huh?
I think everyone's different. I don't feel demons around me. Probably don't even pay attention anymore, unless something shows, and they're real. My youngest son years and years ago was seriously ill for 2 years, like 4th and 5th grade. We couldn't figure it out. I went to every holistic this, that, and the other thing. And so I just said, this has to be a spirit, a dark spirit. So I took him to a friend of mine, because it's hard to work on your own, loved ones.
Right.
A friend of mine who was an acupuncturist who could see spirits. And Gabe was supposed to cross over the threshold of the doorway into my friend Larry's office. And Gabe just stood there and screamed, "It won't let me in. It won't let me in." He literally could not go over there. Wow. His dad's family, boy, serious stuff there, mafia, the old country in Italy. I mean, the stories are unbelievable back there. So I had my friend come to the house and cast that out of Gabe. And the next night, after it was done, that evening, I had a dream about what was wrong with Gabe. I took my son to the pediatrician. I looked at her and I said, I had a dream. He needs like an MRI or a CAT scan. There's something in his head. Doctors are not supposed to listen to dreams, right? She just said, okay, I'll order one. Now, I'm not your standard Christian. I don't even know if a Christian would say I'm a Christian, to be really honest. She is very standard. And you know what I mean? She just said, I believe in the power of dreams. God gives dreams. And they found out what was wrong with Gabe, and he had surgery.
Wow.
So, I mean, we can use this knowledge in our life too. We don't want to go looking for spooks underneath every, pillow on the couch. But we're all interdimensional. We are interdimensional beings. So we're going to be impacted just in our everyday lives at some levels, by spirits that are happy and spirits that aren't so happy.
And I was going to ask you something about some advice on that. And also what's very interesting is I know a story a little similar to that, but the opposite. A friend of mine was trying to get into her house and there were robbers in the house and they had guns. And as she got out of her car, something kept shoving her. She said she couldn't get in the house. Something was shoving her back. And then the robbers came out of the house. So I guess that works. That's a kind of cool, interesting both ways. What should people be doing sort of every day just to sort of start with that energetic or chakra cleanse? Any suggestions for the folks?
I say it's just set your heart in the right place. I use a little exercise that works well for me. I teach it to students where every morning I get up and I just acknowledge my own spirit, the divine essence I am. I ask to be connected to positive, supporting spirit allies. And then I just surrender to the greater spirit. And I go about my day that way. So if I become aware of something, I figure, it's something I'm supposed to do something with. I remember I did that years and years ago. And one of the dogs ate the couch. Okay. Basically, the dog really did eat the couch. And so I'm like a single mom. I'm exhausted. We don't have any food. The couch is gone. There's no pillows, destroyed the pillows too. I go late to Target and I'm like, okay, I'll get a couple things that we need because I have to have clients in there the next day. This was quite a while ago. And we need food. So I'm leaving and I had done this spirit to spirit. And, Gabe, my youngest is, crying and I got to get home to the other kids and all this stuff and the dogs who were probably eating something else. And this voice just says, help that man. And I'm like, I'm not helping anybody. I'm not helping nobody. And I just hear the voice again, help that man. So I pretty much ignore it till I'm almost out of the door. And then it's like my cart gets stopped, right? So I look over and there's this young man just sitting there. He's alone, maybe 20. And I knew I was supposed to help him. And I said, what's going on? He goes, my friend stole my car and they left me here this morning. And I knew the chef at Target, the guy who cooks the hamburgers. So we got him food. I called the police and, the chef was very nice, because he gave me and my son food too, which was really nice. And I'm like, I just set myself. So I basically just do my world, do my life. But if I'm called to help, then I'm available to help too.
Wow, that's fantastic. Okay, so I also like, and then we'll go to a break. I like how you just talked about setting your heart and doing that, which I'm sure becomes a habit, and then it becomes a nice, you know what I mean? You kind of do it automatically. Yes. Is that it's not complicated. Sometimes
it's simple.
Sometimes I listen on TikTok because, I always want to hear what everyone else is doing. Sometimes it's so complicated. I'm just like, I don't know that I have all the time in the morning to do that before I even get out of bed.
Good point.
So, all right. Hey, we're going to take a break. We'll be right back. Hey, I'm here with my friend Ari that hosts, or I want to say takes care of all my Zoom events, my comedy shows, my classes. Ari, tell everybody what type of Zoom events you are great at hosting.
Yeah, so I really take care of any kind of Zoom event, from a virtual camp to lecture series, cooking classes, celebrations like weddings or bar and bat mitzvahs, really anything.
And to me, it just looks like you make my life easier. I just have to click on and talk, which is beautiful. Tell everybody, what are you doing behind the scenes that helps me so much?
Yeah, so I'm taking care of all of the settings, like muting and spotlighting people, making breakout rooms, recording the meeting, really just all of the tech pieces you might think of or not think of. I'm taking care of that.
That is so helpful. And it really is the difference between something looking amateurish and something looking really professional and wanting people to come back to your meeting again. So tell everybody where they can find you.
Yes, so you're welcome to email me at wharton.ari@gmail.com. That's WHARTON.ARI@gmail.com. And you're welcome to email me with any questions and find out how we can work together.
And your rates are so reasonable, it's crazy. So everybody, wharton.ari@gmail. I'm going to try and have it in the show notes. If you can't find her or you don't know how to rewind the podcast, just email. I'll get you connected. Thanks, Ari.
Thanks, Karen.
Okay, so now, Cyndi, I can't even believe that this time has already flown by. So
I know, it's like 2/3 done.
I know, it's so fun. So you, a couple of things. First of all, I don't even know if I can start this topic because this book, The Subtle Body, it's amazing. It should be.
It's really good, isn't it? It is. I got a lot of help with that one.
Do they teach this in college? Is it actually a college curriculum book? Because it really should be.
It should be. It's not, but it is used in a lot of like massage therapy, chiropractic college. It's used in a lot of those kind of alternative, but technical settings.
Okay. Cause it's, sometimes I just open it up to any page and see what I'm supposed to learn.
I know it's really, I had no idea what I was doing. Let me tell you that. Now, I really didn't.
Did you feel like it was channeled or you see, you're in flow.
No. Do you know what happened? That Sounds True asked me to write a book on the subtle body. I'm like, what do you want in it? They said, you make it up. Wow. So the same day I'm freaking out about that, a guy friend calls me and he goes, there's somebody I met in Sedona. You need to know him. I go, okay. I call this man, Stephen Ross. He runs a library of ancient medical texts and esoteric texts in Sedona. I call him up. I said, Steve, I'm supposed to know you. Hey, I just got this project. Is there any way you can help me? He sent me 2 boxes of materials within a week.
Wow.
And that was the book. And then that started me on the book.
Wow. See that? I call that living in flow. That's where
it is.
That's where I have to get. And I want to talk about readings in a second too.
Perfect.
And in this book, so I know so many healers or just readers that use this book. I can't say, folks, just go take a look. It's so helpful in so many ways. I just think it's a masterpiece. Okay, so back to readings. So now tell what kind of readings do you give people? What do you see? Do they come to you with an intention? Do you just give what you get? I need one.
It's a little bit of both. I mean, to be honest, their readings, their energy, I'm always oriented toward healing because I think that's just kind of how my heart sets itself. Can we improve matters? Can we create more peace, more joy, literally like a little less pain or whatever it is that needs to happen. And so I typically like people to tell me, here's my list. Here's what's going on. If they don't tell me that, I almost get a little angry because I'm like, okay, I got to do all the work.
I know that feeling. And when I say, what do you want to read? Or can you give me a topic? They go, anything. And then I kind of get like, that's not the best way to go, but we do it.
Well, then you're doing all the hoisting. Mm-hmm. I do have a fallback. If they say that, I've seen people's colors since I was a kid that really tells me their personality, their spiritual gifts. So I just then start doing that. But I typically like a couple pieces to start with. And frankly, then the guides take over. And I tell people that, like, I'm going to say stuff. I always connect to, what the word I use is God, but, higher power to start with, and then I do trust that what I get is going to lead somewhere. So I just start sharing. I think for me, it's important that I say, this is exactly what I'm hearing, or these are the colors I'm seeing. This is how the data is being given to me, because I want them to be the decision maker. Is it valid or not? Is this helpful or not? And I'm a big 12-step person. So I like telling people, take what you want and leave the rest. Yeah. It's your time, your session. I could screw it up. Maybe it's not understandable, or a lot of times anything about the future isn't going to be understood till later anyway. Right. Mm-hmm. So I just try to stay in the moment and share what I'm being given and, then support the person in, kind of deciding what to do with it or not.
And I'm going to jump in for 1 second. And then I also want to say your courses. Then we're going to hit everything.
I love this.
It's interesting. I have this conversation with a friend of mine about, sort of psychics or mediums, or say that energetic ilk, and addiction. And it's very interesting because there's sort of this movement right now towards mushrooms and psychedelics, and then there's also the other side. We were talking about, there was a book we were reading, and the lady was saying how much psychics and mediums drink, and I found that very interesting because is that what, do you have any feelings on that, or am I kind of off? I guess.
You're not off. Oh my gosh. It's so common, because, all right, it all depends on your boundaries. It's really all about boundaries, because think about it. If you're absorbing other people's pain to help them heal it or to understand what they're going through, you have their energy in you. You can't process energy that's not your own. Neither can you feel your own feelings or deal with your own body issues or do just about anything you're supposed to do for yourself. And a lot of common, kind of usage of the gifts is to give other people our own energy. So when you're giving people your life energy, right, or your love energy, you don't have what you need. And so what's the easiest way to boost yourself up? Drink, do Twinkies. They last like 14,000 years.
Yes.
I mean,
from your
so
last
then we
life.
go for substances. We go for substances. And what would happen if we just don't give away our energy in the first place and we don't take on their energy, like in the second place? So that's really what it's about, because we're here to deal with our own issues, not somebody else's. Deal with our energy, not give it away to people. So I'm really clear. This is my energy. I'm not fixing energies for other people. Even when I do healing work, I ask that the healing energies go straight to the client, that they don't come through me, that they go to the client, because they do not want or need Cyndi Dale hanging around to keep working on them. I mean, that sets up a dependency, if nothing else. So addictions are all about what we're not dealing with in ourselves and how we're losing who we are. So I mean, I don't drink. I can't drink. I mean, I'm actually a funny drunk. If I were to drink, I'm really funny.
Well, I had this discussion with somebody else that alcohol sometimes holds anger.
Totally. It does. It represses it. And I come from a family with angry drunks. They're mean drunks. They're mean. And I'm like, okay, Cyndi, just deal with your own anger issues because you do not need to be that person.
And that's even a funny because especially lately, and I don't know if this is, I always kind of feel like we always call it a psychic upgrade. I'm like kind of mid upgrade right now where sensitivities are changing and I'm trying to tune in and do this and that. And so I'm working on it I'm always working to try and get to the next level. And I feel like my anger trigger is like right there. And I've been doing a lot of traveling, which is brutal right now. But I love that you said that because I feel like, people think we're all love and light, but that swings both ways. I've broken quite a few printers from across the room just being mad.
Yes. Well, yeah. And when we're being codependent, we're going to get angry, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because we're going to get resentful. And for me, what's underneath, a lot of that stuff is just this basic fear. It's just this childhood thing for me, too, that's like, oh my gosh, if I don't make somebody happy, they're not going to love me. If I don't take care of their issues, I'm not going to get taken care of. I mean, I keep going around that hamster wheel over and over again, just going, Cyndi, it's okay if somebody doesn't like you. It's okay to say no. It's okay to leave them in their pain.
Who doesn't like you? I feel like your mom. Everybody likes Cyndi. That's that's
you're sweet.
That's good to hear because every once in a while too, I think it's funny. I love to do readings over the phone because there's no reaction. There's nobody making faces in front of you. There's nobody.
Yeah.
And I think they're more accurate that way, although everybody works different. But that is, I remember I did it's why you kind of have to be careful with podcasts. I did one for a friend and I said, I told him he was in the year of moving and relationships and all this is going to change. And he's like, I just moved and my girlfriend broke up with me. And then there was a woman came on and I go, well, I think you should be a teacher. And she was like, I'm a teacher. So the next guy comes on and he goes, yeah, I don't believe any of this. Everybody's a teacher. And I thought I was going to lose my mind. And I just had to remember you can't win with everybody.
No, you can't. I remember years ago, I gave a reading. There's a couple readings that come up. I gave a reading to a woman, and within a year, 7 of the 8 things we had seen happened. She was mad about the one thing. I'm like, hello? I would love to know, 88% of what my life might look like.
Exactly.
Another man called me after 10 years after he had had a session. I didn't remember him. He said, I thought you were just bonkers. He said, I called you and you told me that he was like a chef in Boston, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or something like that. He said, you told me that I was going to move to London with my boyfriend and that I was going to get an MBA and in, 10 years or 9 years or whatever from that point, go and live in Manhattan. And I would find myself on a ferry going into the city going, I don't like what I'm doing. He goes, I'm a chef. And I think he was a married chef actually to a woman in Boston. He goes, all of that happened. He goes, I called because I was on the ferry having, broken up with my wife, moved to London, went to the, London, School of Business. Cause what else am I going to do? Well, my boyfriend is, working there, and then we moved to Manhattan for his job. I got a job and I'm on this ferry and I'm like, that woman told me about this. He goes, so what comes next? You know what? I didn't get a darn thing.
Sometimes I think sometimes I'll go, I got a blank because you're supposed to figure it out or,
That's it.
And the other thing is, once I had someone request a refund and she asked for half. And I was always like, what? Did I only get half right? But that's amazing. Yeah. When people expect everything to be perfect too, sometimes I'm like, you have free will. So sometimes this is a warning.
And other people have free will. And even if in the stars they're supposed to marry you, they don't have to put that ring on your finger when they get down here now, do they? They don't need to do it. It's all free will. I mean, and we really are. I believe we have to plan for tomorrow. I'm a big planner. I make my lists. I save my money for if I ever retire. I probably won't, but you know what I mean? I do all that stuff. But your decision making is in the moment. Joy is in the moment. It really is being, where we are. It really is how we even get the energy to deal with a crisis when it comes up. Is we can only go step by step.
Yeah. And yeah, it's a very, very, I feel like there's bullet points. Like you just told that guy all the bullet points and his choice was how he got there. That was my version.
Totally.
Tell us about the courses or classes that you teach or are coming up or any of them.
I love teaching. So it's not on my, CyndiDale.com is my website. Everything's on there, CYNDI. So I have a super cool advanced shift neck work class starting November 9th. It'll be posted within, just like, kind of a ways. It's not quite on my site. It'll be on my site. We're just finalizing it. And then I every year teach an advanced, a regular apprenticeship program. It's a 9-month program. I teach people about their gifts. I get amazing people. So I would say, if you're going to spend your money, take a class because then you learn how to do something, not just learn how somebody else does something, but you get to develop your own gifts. I just love teaching. People are so dedicated and so talented. And I want to see everybody really get a sense of their talents and use them.
Great. Okay. November 9th. I might try to air this early. Can people get into the class if this came out on the 12th?
Yep. They can.
Great.
They can get in anytime. Doesn't matter. Then it'll for sure be on the site.
Oh, fantastic!
They can see it. You can get in these classes anytime too.
Oh, wonderful!
The shift classes
because they'll be able to watch what the stuff.
Yep, you can backlog.
It's
absolutely
fascinating how technology works. Okay. So, the classes, that's fantastic. Also, it sounds like you're like me, like I'm planning to do a Patreon in November and I keep watching November get closer and going, what am I doing? What am I doing for my Patreon? So now optimistic or pessimistic or both, where is the world going right now? It's so strange.
It's I'm optimistic. I don't know about you. I'd love to hear where you weigh in. I'm an optimist about where we're going. I am a realist about people, right?
Mm-hmm.
We're not going to just float into the fifth dimension. We're not ascending. Mm-hmm. We are not ready to do that. Maybe a few lucky souls will do that. I'm more optimistic. I really like the young people.
Yes.
And I love that they're addressing climate change and they're sick of the two-party system and they're reading through stuff and they're open to being spiritual and creative and they want to bust up some of the systems. I'm optimistic because of a lot of the young people.
I agree. And I kind of feel like two things, which is it's getting hard. It's getting very hard. And I think it's going to sort of get harder, but in fact, sometimes people think I'm very dark and what I'm saying is dark, but here's the thing. You're in the movie now. You chose to be in this movie and this is the part that everyone's watching because it's getting tense. But you know what I mean? Like we're here to do stuff. We're here to be things. And I think people are way too hard on the millennials. I say, let them do their thing. They'll figure it out. They're the higher vibration. They don't want war. They don't want these things. So I think they are going to sort of pull it out in the end, in the final scenes of the movie. But I do think we've made it harder than we had to. And I mean, as a collective, especially the United States.
As a collective, the genocide, the racism, the ageism, the horrors, to the climate, all of that is not going to turn around right away. It's just not. It can't. We've gone, kind of past an apex. But I do trust the millennials. I do. And I trust that they've got their wits about them and they're just tired of things. I have a son who's a millennial. He's like 30 years old. And I said to him, you just need a bunch of us old people to die off.
Virus, hello.
Especially the ones at the top. You just need off.
Yes. Well, I even, and I don't get political, but I was like, when Biden won, I was like, look, it's still in America, a 70-year-old white man can be the president. It was like, we're still old men. What is happening?
Yep. Yep.
It's okay. I think so the world coming up, that was you said something in there. I wrote, it's very interesting because they call it the ascension. I know, I just found out a while ago, you probably know, the apocalypse means the lifting of the veil. It doesn't mean the end of the world, which would coincide perfectly with us learning our gifts, which is why I love your teaching, because I think it is now about everyone should just learn whatever they can, get something out of everything, especially in the metaphysical field, especially in the healing field. I will tell you, I was a Reiki master, and I kind of felt like I wasn't in sync. I felt like this is good, but I stepped back. And just recently, it seems like not only is it's back and it's running and it's working. And so I was like, maybe that was the wrong time. But when people talk about ascending, that means something different to everybody. So you're feeling like that's when, that's not a physical thing.
It's not about disappearing. You can't leave your problems behind. They come with you. I love the lifting of the veil. Recently this week with a client, I don't remember what we were talking about, but the guidance coming through me said, the veil that people talk about, this beyond the veil, you die and you go through the veil. The guidance was the veil is in your own field. Mm-hmm. It's in your biofield. It's like a fog in your field you can't get through. Like if you defog, if you lift your own veil, then those powers of good come and ignite your own powers of good. So I like looking at the veil that way. It's like, do we really need to keep ourselves personally in the fog, or can we start being real with what's happening? Like you don't get to ignore the problems that are in your life or in the world, but there's help. Heaven is in earth. Right here.
Yes.
So can we open to it?
Yes, that's because the veil is not like a shower curtain that's going up. It's individual. That's fantastic. Oh my God, I could talk to you forever. I have to tell you the funniest kind of example of guides. Like people always think guides, there's a flash of light and then they come in and they're very subtle, as to use the title of your book, The Subtle Body. I had an ex call me back, and I always really liked him. And I always thought, he had fought in war and stuff, and he's pretty damaged. And I was always like, he's perfect. He's not going to ask anything of me. We're not going to be all emotional. He's just going to be there. And then I hear in my head, and how is that going to help you? How's that going to help you grow?
Exactly. Right.
Cyndi, I love you. Okay.
I love you. What joy you bring to the world. Thank you.
And you, oh my God. So everyone, CyndiDale.com. It's CYNDIDALE. I could just talk to you forever. My dog is lined up at the front door to go to the bathroom. So
you gotta take care of the dogs. Mine are sleeping, so they didn't hear it when I said the word snackies earlier.
Oh, they're up now. Wonderful. I cannot thank you enough. This was fantastic. You're amazing.
Thank you, dear. Many blessings.
Thank you. Everybody, the book, The Subtle Body, an Encyclopedia of Your Energetic Anatomy. You have to have that. Go to CyndiDale.com. Take a class. Thanks to Mike at Uno Rising Media. Everybody, I'll see you next week.